am not a victim, I am the victor. The stronger and the winner. You picked the wrong woman on August 19th, 2009. I survived.
Interesting that he could not even look at her. Joining me, Romney DeRossola, licensed clinical psychologist, Robin Sachs, attorney and former sex crimes prosecutor. She is the author of Predators and Child Molesters, and Angela Rose, founder of PAVE and a victim of sexual assault at age 17. Romney, what do you make of that scene in the courtroom there? This is evidently unusual that a victim steps up in that fashion. I'm surprised we don't see more of that.
It's incredibly unusual. It's incredibly brave.
Ron, would you encourage a victim that you were, say, prosecuting on behalf of, would you encourage them to do something like this?
Oh, gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, to be able to go to court and confront your abuser, you go from victim to survivor, just like Angela Rose, who I know you're going to talk to next. She goes out there and tells her story. And the more people who hear this story realize, listen, I have nothing to be ashamed of as a victim. It is you, the perpetrator, who has everything to be ashamed of. And it is an opportunity to get that power back, the power that was taken away from them on the night of the crime.
And Robin, I am going to talk to Angela in just a second, but this is something that makes me crazy, which is why women don't step up on their own behalf more often. And what do you think that is, that switch, that there was somebody like Angela and there is somebody like this Heidi to do this? What do other women need to do to make that switch?
I mean, I think some of this has to do with, you know, the nature of the crime, the support they had afterwards.
Angela, I am going to go to you. My question is, was Heidi covering up her true feelings when she addressed her attacker? In other words, was this some sort of compensation? And I want to know what was really going through your mind, Angela, when you heard her address this gentleman in court. But I'm not going to let you speak, okay? Okay, good. Heidi told her attacker, quote, "My name is Heidi Elizabeth Damon. I have a name that will go on forever. You have a name, sex offender, attempted murderer. Nice to put you away." The attacker pleaded out. He's behind bars for 15 years. The judge said if we're up to him, he'd received a life sentence. Now, Angela Rose, you were attacked when you were 17. I promised the question, what was going through your mind when you heard Heidi take on her attacker in court? Let us know. This is your chance.
I was so inspired to hear her come and talk about an issue that is often so silent, and the importance of shattering the silence of sexual violence, because it's going to inspire and empower other victims to come forward, to no longer be a Jane Doe or even a John Doe, that there is an opportunity for people to speak out and to heal.
Angela, tell me about your organization. Is this, are you finding traction in getting young women to come forward?
Absolutely, especially now with everything being so much in the media's eye of these issues of sexual abuse, that I do feel like people are feeling more comfortable to come forward. But unfortunately, we still live in a very victim-blaming society, and so that's something that we're really trying to change.
Yeah, now, you heard me talk a few minutes ago before the break about the fact that people who are victimized in childhood often get re-victimized in adolescence and young adulthood. How do we help people understand that pattern without blaming the victim?
Well, there is such a cycle of violence, as you know. I think it's really important to also empower the people around the victims to know how to support them. Studies show that the first person that a survivor tells, if they react well, that can greatly impact the healing process.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Dr. Romney. The fact is, though, many times the people close to the victim either blame the victim or blame themselves or both.
Yes, and they themselves take on the shame. It'll go to a family member. The family member will think this is bringing shame on the family. They'll say, what were you doing at the time?
Why did you put yourself in that position? Exactly. Is the comment there. Why did you wear those clothing? Robin, do you encounter that kind of stuff often in the people you represent?
I capture lots of things, and one of the things that I'm going to call you out on, Dr. Drew, is you referred to this guy as a gentleman 3 times in a row, and I was like jumping out of my chair. This guy is not a gentleman. This guy is a disgusting pig. He's a sex offender, and as long as we look at people like that as gentlemen, people's impressions are constantly going to always look to judge the victim. So I think that we have to change our language, and we have to call people who they are, what they are. Victims turn into survivors, and perps that are pigs are called such.
I was using a little irony. I apologize if it wasn't obvious, but we have a saying here in this studio. My staff likes called jerk pervert, and yours is what was it? Pigs? What kind of pigs?
perp pig.
Perp pig. Okay, perp pigs. I'm writing that down. The perp pigs and the jerk perverts. I'll substitute that for gentlemen. No problem.
That's not a problem. But I'll tell you one thing. As a prosecutor, what I'm doing with Heidi's speech is I'm printing that speech out. I'm giving it to every victim out there who says, what do I write? What do I say? And I would use that as a prosecutor. I'm not prosecuting anymore, but I certainly would if I was there, to have victims get the words together, because there is an issue with words, and just figuring out what the right words are to say sometimes are so very difficult for victims, and Heidi gives victims that opportunity.
And all of you guys, and Angela, I guess I'll throw this your direction since you have an organization to empower victims. To me, as much as anything, this seems as a woman's issue, a women's issue. You know, to generally empower women to speak up when they've been, first of all, to teach them how to set boundaries and how to say no and get themselves out of situations, and then how to step up if something has gone wrong. Isn't that what you're about?
Actually, as an organization, we feel that it is both the opportunity for men and women to come together to mutually be a part of the solution. And PAVE is on college campuses across the country, empowering, like I said, both men and women to work together to create safer campuses, to create safer environments, and allow people the opportunity to talk about this without shame and without fear.
And again, as you said, the cycle of violence, Angela, Dr. DeVoslo, I'm going to go to you on this. So often, and this I keep coming back to this because it is what I'm challenged, and I know you are in clinical work all the time, which is oftentimes mom was sexually abused, brings around a perpetrator, kid gets sexually abused, then they get victimized later in life. I mean, this is a transgenerational patterns that we have got to break. And if am I overstating it to say that is at the core of the mental health problems of our time?
Absolutely. Trauma is the core of the mental health problems of our time. It leads to substance abuse, to other mental illnesses, to poor decision making, to personality pathology. It really is a root cause. It is a cycle. And people who have been victimized, now we have to think about this in terms of they're the people at risk. They do need intervention. We need to build this into our schools, into our clinics, into our pediatricians' offices. We need to identify them, and we need to give them the support they need so they can make better decisions across their lifespan.
And Angela, back to you. You were a victim, is that correct?
Yes.
You were victimized, I guess. You were never, I mean, again, this language we have to all get used to. I don't like calling anybody a victim because but you were the object of a perpetrator, a pig perpetrator, as Rob would say. And what was your experience, and how did you get through it? How did you turn this around? Because sometimes just telling your story can be so powerful in helping other people turn theirs around.
Absolutely. I was 17 in broad daylight, as was in Heidi's case. Broad daylight. I was kidnapped from a shopping mall and sexually assaulted by a man who was on parole for murder. And when I came out and talked about what happened to me, I was amazed at how widespread these crimes were. Everybody around me, I felt like, old high school teachers, friends of my family, so many people had been victimized by sexual abuse, but overwhelmingly it was somebody that they knew and they trusted. And it's very difficult to talk about something like that when it's somebody that's close to you. So we as an organization at PAVE are really working to shatter that silence of sexual violence, because when you keep it inside and it festers, it comes out long term with, as you know, the eating disorders, the self-mutilation, depression. But when you talk about it, you release it, and you're able to be on a better fast track to healing that trauma.
And Robin, let me go out to you. You know, you and I have talked about things like this over the years many times. Where do we need to take this conversation? I mean, we're having this conversation because it's in the news all of a sudden. Those of us that are clinicians, you in the courtroom, I'm certain this is not going to go away for us. It's around all the time. How do we keep this top of mind for people? Certainly isn't something the presidential candidates are talking about. You know what I'm saying? And yet it is at the core of so much that has gone wrong in our culture. How do we keep this conversation going?
Well, thankfully, there is the silver lining of the Sandusky case, because I think that case is going to go on for a long time, so it'll thankfully keep that case and the conversation alive. And people like Angela, who encourage people to tell their stories, and it is so very important what Angela brings up, is here we're talking about Angela's case as well as Heidi's cases, which are both stranger rape cases. That is the rarity.
Yeah.
That is really 87 to 92%, depending on what statistics you believe, of sexual assault are between someone whom the victim and perpetrator whom they know each other. They know each other. There's a relationship. There's a relationship of trust, whether it's a coach, a rabbi, a priest, a parent, a step-parent, whatever it is. That's where it is. And what people need to recognize is that there has to be a place where you can have those conversations and have safe telling people to talk to. A lot of people train their children to come to me, come to your mom if something happened. Well, lots of kids don't like going to their mom. We have to teach our kids to keep telling somebody until somebody does something.
Not only that, the perpetrators are very skilled at terrorizing and manipulating these kids. So, but Angela Rose, keep up that great work. Robin, of course, we'll hear from you soon. You're back with us. And Dr. Ramadi, thank you as always.